Did you know that Mark Antony and Cleopatra did not die together? In fact, there were no snakes involved. And honestly, the real story about how they came to pass is a lot more chilling. The following information is from the book Cleopatra by Stacy Schiff, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author. So after their defeat at the Battle of Actium, Octavian's forces began to close in on Mark Antony and Cleopatra in Alexandria, Egypt. Mark Antony was actually misled by a false report that Cleopatra had killed herself, but this actually didn't happen. Distraught, he attempted suicide by falling on his own sword, which was befitting of a Roman general. However, this blow was not immediately fatal. Bleeding and in agony, Antony was carried to Cleopatra, who had barricaded herself inside her mausoleum. Schiff describes that Cleopatra and her attendants were unable to open the door to the mausoleum, so they actually had to tie Antony to ropes and hoist him up through a high window. And according to accounts, this was not a very pleasant experience for poor Mark Antony. It is at this point Mark Antony dies in his lover's arms. Now, this is where a girl comes in. Cleopatra actually thought she might be able to use her political cunning to win over Octavian's favor. So she arranged a meeting with Octavian, Caesar's heir and her enemy, and also the architect of her downfall. Cleopatra approached this meeting with Octavian as a diplomat and a queen, so she was wearing mourning attire but still in her full regalia. However, Octavian, ever the pragmatist, was cold and unreadable. Now, Octavian promised her safety, but not her freedom, and he also made it very clear that her and Julius Caesar's son, Caesarion, would never rule. Now, Schiff states that Cleopatra likely realized the real politic that was happening. She was being saved, but she was going to be paraded through Rome as a triumph, which is something she probably found intolerable. Knowing her fate was sealed, Cleopatra returned to her mausoleum, and after she ensured that all of her affairs were in order, she ended her own life. And this very likely was not from a snake bite. She likely used a poison that was applied with a hairpin or an ointment. And Cleopatra was truly crafting her last performance. She was found dressed in her royal attire on a golden couch, wearing her crown, and flanked by her two most loyal handmaidens. It was an orchestrated death that defied Octavian's humiliation that he had planned for her. Now, this does leave one major character remaining, and that is Caesarion, Cleopatra and Julius Caesar's son. He was only 17 years old when he was lured back to Alexandria under the false promise of mercy. Cleopatra likely sent him away to safety when Octavian was approaching, but he was intercepted and captured. Despite some internal debate among Octavian's advisors, it was ultimately decided that he was too powerful a symbol to let live. As Caesar's only biological son, he posed a rallying point of dissent for both Rome and Egypt, and Octavian just thought it was much too dangerous to keep him around. Now, Octavian was a very smart statesman, but he was kind of spooky and scary. His chilling rationale, as recorded by Suetonius, was too many Caesars is not good. Caesarion was quietly executed, likely strangled, and this eliminated Octavian's last obstacle into transforming into Augustus, the first emperor of Rome.